My name is Steve Gilman, and for decades I've been helping brands engage with their audiences. On this podcast, we'll connect the dots in the fast-paced world of branding by talking with entrepreneurs, leaders, and marketers on the front lines of telling brand stories. Today we're talking with Andrea Dono, Executive Director of Harrisonburg Downtown Renaissance. Andrea shares how collaboration supports downtown businesses, the importance of staying true to your mission in difficult times, and how storytelling builds lasting connections. Welcome to the Brand Story Podcast. My guest today is Andrea Dono, the Executive Director of the Harrisonburg Downtown Renaissance. Andrea previously worked for the National Trust for Historic Preservation's Main Street Center, where she helped lead a nationwide downtown revitalization program. Hi, Andrea. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun talking to you today. Let me just start out by asking the question of, you moved here to Harrisonburg to be in charge of the Downtown Renaissance in 2016 and became the executive director, but you were working in an organization advising organizations like the HDR. What brought you to Harrisonburg? Why? That's a really big change, because I bet you thought the people doing your job were maybe a little crazy.
Well, when I was working at the National Main Street Center, I used to say that you'd have to be crazy to have this job, and it's true. I was correct. So it's a labor of love, and it's definitely something that you do because you're passionate about it. And when I was working at the National Main Street Center, I actually knew my predecessor in this job, Eddie Bumbaugh, and he was always sending us press releases and getting in touch with us. So I was very well aware of Harrisonburg. It was on my radar screen, and it was so, in fact, because so much happened that was really good and very impressive in such a short amount of time, that usually the trajectory for seeing meaningful change happens in a much longer timeline. So the fact that Eddie and his partners and the volunteers and the board and everybody achieved what they did in the time that they did was just pretty incredible. So I already knew about Harrisonburg.
That's cool. So I'm glad so you were familiar, and that part of what made you come here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say for our listeners, our Gravity Group is here in downtown Harrisonburg. So this episode is near and dear to our hearts. We're talking to people. Our guests are from all over. Our guests are, people in the marketing and communications industry and people in leadership from all over. But one of the things we're doing is we're doing some local focus episodes like this. And, talking to you and you trying to make our downtown better where we live and work, we really appreciate all you guys do.
Well, we appreciate businesses like yours being downtown and providing jobs and being part of the creative industry, which puts us on the map. So there's a lot of good synergy there. So we're just as grateful.
Beyond being familiar with Harrisonburg, what was it about the town that really attracted you to this job?
I had worked at the Main Street Center for quite some time, and the National Trust had a bunch of layoffs, and I thought I was safe, but I wasn't. And so I unfortunately lost my job, and it felt like no matter what I did since working at the National Trust, nothing was really the right fit. And I knew after a few years that I had to get back into this Main Street work. So, there was a lot of competition there. I got to work for a band and travel around, and, everyone was like, you're crazy to think that you want to be, back behind a desk somewhere. And I'm like, no, man, this Main Street stuff's important. I'm tired of the strip malls and the tract housing and tearing down historic buildings and, everyone bowing down to big box stores. It's time to really pay homage to our small communities and the great things that they bring to our country. So I couldn't wait to get back into this job, and Eddie and I stayed in touch, and one day he said, hey, would you like to move to Harrisonburg and take over for me? I'm retiring. And I said, you know what? I might.
That's great. So was that about 5 years ago?
Yeah, so that was probably in 2015 in the late fall, early winter is when I guess the recruitment process happened. And I had a full day of on-site second interview. So we had a phone interview when I was living in Northern Virginia. I conducted it from a car.
Perfect.
Yeah, not sketchy at all.
No.
Yeah, and then they brought me down for a full day where I got to meet the board, and there was a panel interview with different folks from our partnerships. Jenny from the Arts Council was there, and folks at the city. It was the real deal. I was getting grilled, and I had to do a presentation at the very end, and I poorly photoshopped myself into staff photos, like with, at events,
That's kind of
pouring.
fun, though. That's a fun touch.
Yeah, it was pretty horrible, but it must have worked. So
Yeah.
I lucked out.
Well, good for you for, in that situation, showing your personality and having a little fun with it. I'm sure that was actually really fun for everybody. So, I've noticed we've had our office downtown for, 10 plus years easy, a little beyond that. And I've noticed a real uptick in HDR's presence and the activity you all do since you came on board. So, what kind of things did you bring to the table and what were your first big wins?
It's funny. What I thought I was going to bring to the table ended up not being what I would bring to the table. Once you get in a job, you start realizing what it is that you need to do. And, we had a partnership with the city. We still do. And we had to redefine that partnership my first month into the
Wow.
job.
No big deal.
Yeah, it didn't come up in the interview, but it was definitely my first thing to kind of figure out those things. So there was a lot of administrative stuff, but my background is mostly with economic development, and I wanted to make sure that we were helping the small businesses. So I wanted to create a more robust economic development program for the organization. And so that was one of the first things that we started tackling, was looking at what we had done in the past to help the small businesses, and then thinking about what we can do going forward that might be more impactful, and doing some interviews and some surveys and talking with some people, and then giving some thought to what I think might help, turned into something called Bricks and Clicks, which we got a big grant from the city to do it in the first year. And we partnered with the city's economic development department, as well as the county's, the Small Business Development Center, and JMU. We got together and we figured out, look, businesses are trying to figure out how to reach their customers better, and we're in a position to help them do it. We can put them in a room and give them a training, and they can take notes and say, yeah, this is great. And then they're going to go back to their day job and not have time for any of that kind of stuff. Or we can give them the training through a one-on-one interaction with an expert, people who are well-versed in marketing or website development, or even physical improvements that you can change around your store, your layout, to circulate customers better. And sit down with someone and have a conversation and find out what their goals are, what their challenges are, what their capacity is, and think about what their potential is and how they can meet it. And then give them that one-on-one assistance, and then give them a couple of bucks. So give them some cash. Say, like, not only have we given you some ideas, but we can give you some money, so you can put some of those good ideas into action right away.
That's really cool. I feel like that's a little unusual for a downtown to do, in the way that, I noticed that change, and I didn't know it was you at the time, but I noticed that program and noticed that change. And that's a very boots on the ground approach. That's a very get involved and get in there with real advice and real help. Had you learned that somewhere, or was it an inspiration? How'd that come about?
It was an inspiration, and it was because we did something with some of the same partners called Retail Renaissance before I started here, and they were they had a series of, I think, like 6 to 8 weeks where participating businesses can be in a classroom setting and learn about different aspects of their businesses to make improvements. And there was one person who came in who was talking about visual merchandising. So, like, how you can set up your windows and your displays, and how your lighting should be set. And they said, hey, why don't we just go take a walk, and let's go into some of your shops, and I can give you some quick recommendations to kind of show you how this kind of comes together in real life. And everyone said that was it. That was awesome, because it wasn't just these concepts on a screen. It was somebody walking around, going to my business or my friend's business, and talking about little tweaks and things that they can change and why they would make them happen. And they just said that one-on-one time was it. That was great. And I said, how do we blow that up? How do we make one-on-one time the focus? And when we did Bricks and Clicks, we interviewed the participants afterwards, and they said, even if I didn't get the grant money, no, don't take it away, but even if I didn't get the grant money, that one-on-one time was well worth being in the program just on its own. So we kind of knew we were onto something.
I think that's so cool, because what I've seen in the past, what I've seen in other communities, is a very well-meaning, almost academic approach to this kind of thing, where, people will give, an organization like HDR might give a lot of advice and have a lot of great theories, and They'll tell businesses what to do, but often they're not going to just jump down in the trenches and help them. So I think that's really admirable the way you guys do that, because it's a much more activist sort of, hand in hand version of what downtown revitalization usually is.
I have to say that I think the reason why that works is because of all the personal relationships we have with the business owners and their managers. And, when you're asking me about why I wanted to come to Harrisonburg, it really is the people, and the way, like the Harrisonburg way of doing things, because it's not like this in other places. Like the level of cooperation and collaboration and, the idea that all ships rise is real. It's not just, we're not paying lip service to some platitude. Like we actually believe it, and we walk we walk the talk.
Yeah.
So, I was listening to the Hello Harrisonburg podcast when I was trying to decide, did I want to move, and sell my condo and come out to Harrisonburg, and listening to those Hello Harrisonburg podcasts where various people were being interviewed, kind of what you guys are doing, really connected me to the people here. And, it was funny because like, as we were having the interview process when I was on site, I was meeting the people who were in the podcasts.
Oh, that's great.
And I had written a case study success story about Harrisonburg, about the downtown housing that was created here. And I got to meet a lot of the people who I interviewed on the phone years ago. So, it just, the people here are amazing, and there's a lot put into social capital. And so when you have relationships with people, they trust you and they know you're coming from the right place, and they welcome you into their business, and they welcome your feedback. And as I get to know them personally, as I get to know their businesses, we can make better recommendations. And it's a better way to do things. And it's not something you can just show up one day and start doing. You have to get to know people and really care about what you do.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because we moved I went to JMU long, long ago, but our business started in McLean, Virginia, and we were in the Washington, D.C. market for 5 or 6 years before we moved back here. And we moved back here because D.C. is hostile. It's just not a friendly place to work, and we got tired of it, that and the traffic. But, I think if you had that approach and you tried to do that in Arlington, people would be like, get out of my store. And here it's just a very different, and it's just, maybe it's a city thing, but we're not a really small town anymore, but we still have that vibe, which I think is really unusual.
Yeah, there's an incredible vibe here. We're exploring that right now with the downtown master planning process, which I won't geek out too much on it.
That's okay. It's one of my questions, so go ahead, geek out.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're working with Inner Space Studios. They're based out of Philadelphia. And so they are a great team. They've got some great partners that they're working with, and they're doing a full-blown community exploration and analysis of Harrisonburg and what our conditions are now, who our people are, what the vision our community has, and what we could become in 20 years and what that roadmap could be to get us there. And so we had a couple of fun online engagement tools where we've got this map of Harrisonburg, and people can drop pins and say, oh yeah, this intersection is a death trap.
Yeah, right.
Please do something about this. And others are saying wow, I really love this blank wall. Could this be a mural? Or, what about Black's Run? Can we daylight that, the waterway running through downtown and turn that into an asset instead of covering it up? And so there's been a lot of great feedback, and from all of that, and from another survey, we're getting people's values and what they cherish and what they want to keep and what they want to change, and from that becomes a vision, and then the team helps us put together a plan. So it's been cool, and everyone's like, look, Harrisonburg downtown is quirky, and don't mess with that.
Yeah.
And we love our ducks, so keep the ducks, don't get rid of them. And we want to see more art, and we want to talk about our heritage and our history, because you walk through downtown and outside of the Civil War markers, you don't see too much else about our past. And so we're going to have a tall order to bring all those things to life, but at least we have 20 years to do it. So
I mean, it's a really cool story, and I'm glad to hear you say, don't get rid of the quirky nature, because Harrisonburg is quirky, and it's not, nothing against Charlottesville. I love Charlottesville. It's not Charlottesville. It's not it has this casualness to it and this friendliness to it. I think of the history of the Little Grill alone and how it morphed through so many different versions and how other parts of our downtown have done that. But I, I really hope and I think we are like, honoring that, not trying to just pave over it. And I think that a lot of communities made the mistake of, okay, this is kind of an old building or something that's maybe not beautiful. Let's just forget about it or pave over it or build something brand new. And I was really glad to see with some of the housing and some of the stuff that I know it takes a lot of partners, a lot of people involved here, but it's been really phenomenal to watch.
Well, we did lose historic
Oh,
buildings.
sure, I know,
And
but
we continue to lose them. Yeah,
yeah,
it's really regrettable that I look at historic photos of our downtown. I'm just like,
yeah, the
ah,
Virginia Theater always kills me.
everyone brings that one
Yeah,
up, and where the jail is now, it used to be there,
yeah,
and certainly on the north side of town, there was a thriving African American
yeah,
neighborhood. So, there's a lot of regrets, and so having this master plan, I hope will prevent us from having future
yeah.
regrets.
I think that's really well put because it's like all communities, it went that direction, and I feel like the HDR has really helped slow that down and maybe reverse it because there's still a lot to preserve. So I think that's pretty great.
Yeah, well, getting our historic district was the
Yeah,
biggest thing that we did to make that happen, because once you can get historic tax credits and make those projects go, essentially is really the key there. So yeah, I'm grateful for all the property owners who were on board with that, because you look at the Kiesel
yeah,
building,
that's amazing.
that's stunning, and we've got some cool ones.
Yeah, definitely do. So how do people get involved in that master planning? Is there a way for people to participate?
Yeah, so if you I can give you an email. I can send you a link.
Okay, great. We'll post it with your
Good. Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, so we have a link. It's on the city's website, and so people can learn more about the plan. And the downtown map is still up there. There's also still a survey, but we're going to be transitioning into doing some in-person engagement over the last weekend of July. And then I think sometime in early fall, we still have to plan it. We want to test out a concept, and we're not sure what it's going to be yet. It could be how do we activate the strip of land that's between the Water Street parking deck and Black's Run. Right now, if people haven't seen it, it's basically very concrete.
Yeah, it is
It's just
very
a ton of
concrete. Well
concrete.
put.
Yeah, and people envision there being like festival lights and maybe some sort of vegetation and kind of like a promenade of sorts, and to leverage this natural habitat, which is cool. I saw a green heron there in a tree one day, and I was like, "Welcome to downtown. This is cool."
That is cool. Yeah, I think, we'll put resources for people to go, but if you're watching this, and you haven't visited the Harrisonburg Downtown Renaissance website, please do. There's a lot of really good information on there. So I have a question, not to take us back just a little, but we'll kind of talk about this a little bit and then keep moving forward. But COVID had to be a huge challenge for you all, and I'm sure still is, and brought some very challenging times for downtowns in general and Harrisonburg downtown and especially the merchants. So, you led HDR through that. I saw you being very active, your entire organization trying to be active to support the downtown. Can you tell me a little bit about that whole experience?
Yeah, that was awful.
Yeah, well put.
I don't recommend it.
I don't think anyone enjoyed it, but think for downtown businesses, it was especially awful.
Yeah, that was terrible. Yeah, we had a few things that we were trying to figure out, right? So as soon as it got real, when we had our first confirmed case of COVID, I got a couple of my board members together, and we sat down and we said, okay, here's what we need to do for downtown, and this is what we also need to do for HDR. So we immediately shut down our office. I made everyone get the files that we needed. So we had to figure out how we were going to function as a team. And when I had a new employee start the Monday after we shut down our office. I was like, hey, let's do a virtual orientation, but probably not for another month because I have to figure out what we're doing with our businesses. So, yeah, that was kind of a big challenge for us as an organization. And then, as we weren't able to have any of our events and have sponsorships for bringing income, and we couldn't have our annual fundraiser event, that wasn't good either. So, for us, we just tried to be really scrappy and really make sure that we were like batten down the hatches and making sure that the heat was off at the office, that we weren't paying for things unnecessarily. And we kicked off a couple of fundraising campaigns that were smaller, but people really showed up and they were like, thank you for providing leadership to downtown, because I love the small businesses and we really appreciate it. So for the organization, it was a bit of a struggle, but we said, first and foremost, public health and public safety was always going to be our main goal, and we were committed to our mission. We revisited the mission, which is to create a destination out of downtown with thriving businesses where people can make memorable experiences. And we said that still works. That doesn't change. And we're going to stay true to our mission. And so we also said that we would be transparent in what we go about doing. So we use those as our guiding principles and we just move forward. And so one of the things that I did immediately was send an email to businesses and say, okay, look, first confirmed case, here's what I think is going to happen. And I just kind of like laid out what I think was coming down the pike, and just started digging for resources constantly. And then when the PPP and EIDL loans came out, I gave them all the information they needed. We offered to review applications or put them in touch with other people. Hey, if your bank isn't doing it, let us put you in touch with one that is. So I became the master email writer. And the nice thing is that people said that they would read them and a lot of people would respond. So, they'd be probably pages long, but I just packed them with every resource I could find. And the cool thing is that people were saying, I got a grant for $15,000 because you told me about this opportunity.
Yeah, and I think I watched what you and your team did during the early part of the pandemic and throughout it. And it's interesting because when the chips are down, you really see who a brand is, and your all's actions and the way that you immediately went to the core of your mission and your emails in particular, because I saw all your emails, and we're not a retail business, so it didn't affect us like other businesses. It was a different kind of situation for us than it would be a store where people come in to buy goods. And but I was just really impressed with how you all communicated and how consistently you did it. And I really think, in the long-term perception of HDR and what you all stand for, you did yourself a lot of good. And you did the businesses a lot of good because, it wasn't purposeful storytelling, but it was a brand acting from its heart, helping the people that they're supposed to help.
Thank you. Can you come talk to my board about that?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
No, I have a great board, and they were really appreciative of what we were able to do together. And, my staff was incredible. Like, we all took a moment to regroup and have a good cry, and then just get back to work. There was no downtime for us because we all really care about what we do and we care about the mission. And I guess I'm going to listen to what you said a few times because I didn't realize that that's what I was doing.
Well, I don't think many brands do when they're doing it. And I was talking to I actually did an episode yesterday with someone, and we were talking about a similar thing. And when the chips are down and you've got a crisis or you've got a situation you need to handle as a team, or you have a big change, and I think COVID was all those things wrapped into a perfect little present for everyone, or a very imperfect present. To where everyone had to be like, it was gut check time, and you really see. What's a brand going to do? Are they going to stick their head in the sand? Are they going to try to sell in a weird way? What are they going to do? And a brand is showing who they are every single day. So I think you all did without doing it intentionally, which is really the best way to do it. You all just showed who you were, and you still do. And I think that's really impressive.
Thank you. That's pretty awesome of you to say, Steve. Coming from you, that's a big deal. So.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job. You really are. So how is it going now? I mean, I also, part of my conversation yesterday was, the guest I had saying, they don't like the phrase "get back to normal" because what is normal now? It's like, okay, we have a new normal right up before our next new normal. But how are things going now with HDR and small businesses? Do you feel like you're going to have some of your events coming back? How do you think things are going?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think we're resilient. I think our organization and the businesses that we support are nothing but resilient. So everyone's just been rolling with the punches. And as soon as the governor was like, "Hey, last minute, but we're reopening everything," and the bars opened up and the restaurants were filling up again. So, yeah, everybody's just really trying to bounce back. I've had a couple of retailers say that they've had stronger weekend sales. Recently than they did even back in 2019.
Good. That's
So
great
I think
news.
that's really great. Yeah, you see the restaurants are full and people are starting to plan events, and so are we. So we've got one that we're planning for Labor Day
Oh,
weekend.
great. What is it?
It's called Best Weekend Ever.
That's a very catchy title.
Well, we need the best weekend ever, so we're doing it over Labor Day.
Yeah, I love it.
We're going to have, different things going on throughout the weekend. Friday, we've got First Fridays that the Art Council puts on, so we were promoting that. We have a dance instructor in town who's going to be doing salsa under the pavilion outdoors, and it's going to be, so we'll have that going on for Friday, and then Saturday, which is the best Saturday ever, is going to be a full day of really fun programming where we're going to have buskers throughout downtown, and there's an art market and live music, and we have a secret weapon. It's called an ABC license that is new for Virginia as of a couple of years ago, and we were putting in the works for 2020, but that didn't happen. But it essentially allows you to set up a zone, and so we're doing that for most of downtown. And you can buy beer or wine at a restaurant or go to a brewery and then walk down to Court Square and check out what's going on there. And your kids can get their face painted, and it should be really awesome. So we'll have more live music at night. We're hoping to get enough sponsors to have kind of like an open house, so you can go to the different live music venues and go in without a cover charge and listen to live music at night. And there'll be more dancing under the pavilion for free, and fireworks, of course, because why not?
Yeah, because we all need fireworks right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the ones that we paid for back in 2020 that we never used,
Yeah,
we kind of
right.
have to blow up before the end of the year.
Yeah, I might as well set them off now. Well,
Yeah,
that's great. I'm glad to hear that. I will definitely be there. We will come because that sounds like a
awesome.
blast. And I think there's a lot of, it's great to hear about what you said about the retail businesses downtown. Because, I've been here for a long time and I went away and worked in DC, but I had gone to JMU. So I've seen this town grow and grow over the years. And I'm a huge fan of downtown businesses. And to say that they've had a really good month, after all this, I think there's a lot of pent up demand, obviously, for everything from shopping to eating out to going to an outdoor festival. So hopefully the health and safety of everyone continues to cooperate and people get vaccinated and we can just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, our downtown businesses are really awesome. There's some really great innovation that is coming up all the time. We've got with Simplicity is a business that does uh, I guess they make makeup and body care products for men and women, and it's all natural. And there's nothing that you can't pronounce, kind of a product. And when the pandemic hit, one of our that Bricks and Clicks program, we put it out there and said, "What do you need now to continue your business?" And they said, it'd be really cool if we had an augmented reality tool that lets people try on makeup virtually, and that would help us because we're not getting any impulse buys right now because no one's coming into the shop. And so we were really excited to have a grant for them, but also our connections at JMU X Labs, which is, I guess, like a cool maker space with all the great tools. They had a team of students that were ready to jump on this project, and they helped design that for them. So you can go check out With Simplicity's Instagram page and try it out.
Oh, that's
So,
so cool.
that's next level stuff. And when they suggested that, they were like, "So this is probably going to cost more than your entire program has funding." And so we're like, "Okay, yes, that's true, but let's figure out how we can do a homegrown solution." And so there you have it. We partnered with JMU and a small business, and something cool came out of it. So, our businesses are pretty rad.
Yeah, they really are. And I think the synergies with, JMU supporting the downtown. And
Yeah.
having, a major university right here really, is a feather in our town's cap, but also it connects to downtown in a lot of really cool ways. I certainly remember a day where students didn't think of going downtown, but I think they do now because our downtown's pretty cool.
Yeah. And because of that, we get the best interns. Our JMU interns have been incredible because they are so connected to downtown and they're really talented. And the ones who apply for our internships are ones who already have a love for downtown and small businesses, and they already know about, what's here, and they want to help tell those stories. So our current intern right now, Katie Harwood, is incredible, and we're so happy to have her that we give her full control over our social media. So if you check out our Instagram page, she does, I think on Tuesdays, she takes it over and goes and explores and looks for different stories to tell and has uncovered stuff that we didn't even know about, which is really, really cool. So, they help build our brand because they enjoy it and they live it. So it's awesome. We're lucky.
And they're out there living it every day, so they find things that you wouldn't think of because everyone's got a different version of downtown depending on what they enjoy. So Harrisonburg is definitely a brand like any town, and the downtown has its own feeling and its own stories. And how does your organization go about looking at that, going about, telling the story of a town and a downtown is really complex. It's a big job. So how do you all look at that?
We look at it through storytelling. And what we know is that a lot of people who follow us, whether they don't live here anymore, maybe they graduated, they went to JMU, or they passed through on a trip and now they're, staying in touch with us through our newsletter or social media, and even our local residents, everybody just is pretty enamored with who's here and what's here, that they want to hear more of the behind the scenes stories, and they want to make a personal connection. So yeah, one of the great things is that people want to connect with others. And we launched a couple of blog series, Faces of Downtown, where we had bloggers come in and take a deep dive with different people in the community. Not all of them are business owners, and just really get to know them and get that story out there. And every time we do a human interest story on our blog, we get ridiculous amounts of click-throughs, and we know that people are reading them and they're commenting and they're sharing them. So, everybody want to know about Bob of Downtown Books, and they are really excited to meet Steve and Shami from Cuban Burger. It's just people really loved it, and we also are using that opportunity last year with one of our really talented bloggers who is interning with us. To tell the story about our diverse business owners and our diverse community members, because there's a need to do that because they contribute so much to our community. And so we were really excited to kind of make that a underlying theme of the series.
Good for you. That's a really great way to go about it. And I think, one of the things we do for our clients, one of the things we talk to our clients and people we're helping is genuine human stories over and over again, because no one likes to be sold to, not anymore. But people love stories about other people. And, if you want to represent something as complicated as a downtown, iteration on storytelling over and over again. There are so many different points of view where different people can connect in a different way. You guys are definitely on the right track. That's a great way to do it.
It's been a lot of fun, and I always learn something new every time I read one of the drafts, and when I check out, what my team is putting on Facebook. I mean, they're just incredible. So, yeah, I just think it really goes back to just having the right team in place, because everyone just loves what they do and they're all about the mission. So yeah, it's definitely a full team effort here in telling all those stories. And I'll go out and I'll talk with some people and I'll come back and be like, "Oh my gosh, you guys, guess what I just found out about?" And intern Kate's like, "I'm on it." And my marketing person Emily Winters is like, "Yeah, let's do like a whole series on this." And just there's no shortage of good ideas. And we're an organization that is not top down, so a good idea comes from anywhere, and my team is empowered to just like run with it. So I didn't even know what was going on our Instagram page. I don't spend any time on Instagram, and we were talking about it during staff, and I was like, well, maybe I should like go check it out. And so while we're having our staff meeting, I was like looking at our Instagram. I was like, wait, what are these bubbles at the top? And like, I don't see the things that you're talking about. And, they taught me how to use it. And then I was like, this is incredible. You guys like are doing such an amazing job. And there's such great content there that I wasn't watching because I never used that medium. But now I do because I'm learning about it, like all the great things downtown that I was missing before.
There's a lot of things in social media that aren't positive, but there's an awful lot that is. It's a great way to connect with others and tell stories, and you can find your audience. So it's a great place for you guys to be. How do you touched earlier on how Harrisonburg downtown is a little quirky, and it's nice to hear because I've had people, try to put Harrisonburg in like a box, like you guys are all about outdoors, or you're all about this, you're all about that. And yeah, sure, we are, but it's a little quirky. How do you guys go about trying to capture that personality?
I think if anything, we just want to leverage it and just make sure people have the space to be quirky. So, we're not trying to tell someone to stop doing something. If something's not allowed, we were like, okay, well, here's how you can do it and get away with it, and certainly again, going back to the storytelling and showcasing what we have and getting people excited about it and just celebrating what's here. We don't have to do all the great things that are downtown. There's so many people who are doing it themselves. There's all kinds of random festivals and things that businesses do and the personalities of the business owners, and you just kind of like let everyone be and don't get in their way. It's kind of how you just let it roll.
That's a really great way to look at it. I noticed the other day I was walking around downtown taking a break, and I think it may have been Rocktown Yarn and people helping with that. They're all it's Pride Month, and they're all they did some yarn banners on trees that say love, and it's, you walk around and see stuff like that, and they did it. They took the initiative, but good for our town for being like, yeah, that's cool.
That's the great thing too, is that people will take the initiative. I think there's definitely like the spirit where people just do it. No one necessarily asks for permission or says like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that, or they want to do something, they just do it, and it's great.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I've noticed is people do take the initiative and do things like that, but it in our community, I always see people doing that, and they're doing it with care. I don't, you get this like sense of pride when people do things with our downtown that I haven't seen everywhere else.
Yeah.
It's not like people are just like, oh, I want to use it for my needs and the heck with everybody else. I think that's really unique to our town.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's what's really special about it, that, I guess this is all kind of connected, right? Where people genuinely care about things, they're passionate about their community, they think, bigger than themselves frequently, and then they want to hear about what other people are doing and learn more about them, which is why the blogs do so well. So like, yeah, that again, that social capital, those human connections are driving all the good here. During the pandemic, when that first hit, a lot of businesses were like, what do we do? And so they're trying to figure out what their role might be. And so Pale Fire teamed up with a couple of folks like Digital Minerva and HDR and Cisco. They were like, why don't we find a way to help the hospitality workers, and let's have a food pantry for them. And so they made that happen on their own. And the market was thinking like, hey, there's not enough PPE in the community. Maybe we can work with JMU or other partners to do some 3D printing for some face shields. And so they just started doing that. And other businesses were making masks and asking for donations for material, or asking people to help them make those so they can distribute them. So a lot of people just dug in and said, hey, like there's a need here, so I'm going to fill it. And they didn't do it for any other reason other than there was a need and that they had an ability, which is like so Harrisonburg.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So tell me a little bit. I've got like some pretty like fast hitting questions before we run out of time. But you guys have the Friendly City Fortune coming up. Can you tell me a little bit about like what that is and what the impact of it is for you all?
Yeah, it's huge. So we have basically a mega raffle, and it is mega regulated by the state. So it's a lot of moving pieces, but we have almost 50 prizes that we have available for a raffle, and each ticket is $100, and there's 2 chances to win on it, plus a couple of early birds drawings too for extra tickets and $1,000 in cash. So we've got cars and trucks, and for a lot of people in Harrisonburg, there's a music festival that's produced by the local people called Red Wing Roots Music Festival over in Natural Chimneys Park in Mount Solon, and it's hard to get a campsite. Everyone, like, they sell out like the minute the portal opens. So we have a reserved campsite and 12 tickets for the next year's festival. So that's kind of a big deal. We've got trips and a $20,000 check. So they're real deal prizes, and we buy them locally. So we're infusing money into the economy. And we invite people to participate in a win-win. So you might win a prize, and then downtown wins and HDR wins because we're able to fund our projects and help strengthen downtown. So it's pretty fun. It's a little stressful. We sit there and we're trying not to watch the ticket sales numbers, but the community's been really supportive of it.
I think it's a great way that you all promote the downtown and then also fundraise. So I hope you sell out every single ticket.
Thank you. We do too. We could use it.
So what do you think the future holds for Harrisonburg's downtown?
I think we're just at this point in time where we could go either way. And I think everyone cares about the town so much, and we have so much potential here that I think we're just going to get better and better. And that's why we're doing the downtown master plan, because we're asking people, what do you want downtown to be in 20 years? Because it's not my vision, it's not the city's vision or my board president's vision. It's got to be the community's vision. So, we've had those public engagement tools open for quite some time, asking people to inform that process. And the interviews and focus groups and surveys and everything have been very iterative. So people are saying a lot of the common themes. So we feel like we're hitting on the right thing. And folks are just asking for really great quality of life stuff. And I think if we focus on providing a good quality of life for people here, our potential is just unlimited, right? So, having event programming and making sure we're still family friendly, because there's a lot of families here, and being welcoming to people and making sure folks of all backgrounds are welcome here is important to our community. The arts are important. They want to see more murals and more public art, and don't do anything to disturb the small businesses. They do not want to see chain businesses. They want the small businesses to thrive, and so do we. So everyone's on the same page there. And they just want to see more of the good things that they could have, and to really hold on to the good things that are already here and not let them go, like that quirky nature that we have here. Our local history, to make sure that that's being told. Don't tear down more buildings, and so we're getting that message loud and clear. And so I think we have just a lot of opportunities to accentuate all the good stuff and just make it better, and make sure we don't grow in a way that forces us to lose all the things that we already love about what we have here. Because we don't want to become another version of another town. We just want to be the best version of downtown that we can be. And I think we're on that trajectory. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get there.
Good. Well, keep up the great work, because you guys are doing great work, and you've made a huge impact on making the town even better than it was. And I think you've done it in a way that's really accentuated the personality of the town. So bravo to you guys.
Can I just mention that it's not just us, though? I mean, the long list of partners and people who are part of it, and all the businesses who just do whatever they want to do, and it's a great idea. Everyone really contributes. And so it's nice that we get to kind of be the umbrella for a lot of it, and be that coordinator of stuff. But there's a lot of people in this, and we're honored to have that position in our community.
Yeah, you guys really function as a connector and an encourager for all sorts of different types of people and different organizations. Because I think a lot of different organizations have point of views on the downtown, or see it as being, something that they value for different reasons. Like, a JMU probably looks at it differently than a arts council, than a restaurant, than a boutique, So I think, you all are kind of in the middle in there, and, you're navigating that. And I think, it's a big job, but you guys are in there doing it. It's really fun to watch.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions that are just sort of just about you real quick as we wrap up. And this is one I always ask everyone. This past year was a little crazy for all of us, but what was the highlight of this past year? What is the big positive that you took away from it?
I think that we can remain connected no matter what happens. I don't feel like I've been an island out in the ocean. even though I live alone with my crazy dog. Like I still feel like there's a lot of ways to connect with my family and my friends and my community. So, despite all difficulties, you can still feel that even when it's hard. So I appreciated that, and I definitely don't want to take any of that for granted. So I hope that that's a feeling that I carry on, because it's easy to take things like going out to dinner at a restaurant for granted when you can't do it for several months.
It really is. Yeah, there's a lot to be grateful for, and it's a really hard year, but it's interesting. All the people I've been talking to on this podcast all have a different point of view of, yeah, it was really hard, but I took this thing away from it that I hope I get to keep.
Yeah.
So what today would you tell from everything you've learned? And I know you've probably learned a lot in the last year or so, but even before that, what would you tell the younger version of yourself?
To always have a work-life balance. I think I sacrificed some of my personal time for work, and that has become apparent to me that that's not the way you live your best life. Certainly in the last year, that's become very apparent to me. So I would try and tell younger Andrea, who's probably too stubborn and thick-headed to listen, that maybe you want to still make time for the things that you enjoy and not let them slide, including going to the gym.
Right.
Because getting back to that is probably the hardest.
I think that's probably the hardest for everybody. Well, that's just a great answer, and that's the question I always end on. So thank you so much for making time for this today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's been so good getting to know you and Gravity Group, and I can't wait to listen to the other episodes. And so being part of this is a real honor, so thank you.